Welcome, everybody. Thank you for this panel and this discussion on horror, which we're going to get a little bit deeper into. I know that this is a touchy subject with some of our followers and some of our audience members who don't like horror, but we're bringing them into the fray as little as we can. And I think that your films have sort of helped us along that way. So we are going to begin with talking, having each of the filmmakers just talk about their films. I want you all to just set us up, tell us a little bit what it's about, and even a little bit of what inspired you to make it. And then we're going to have a deeper conversation about this horror genre and, you know, why more and more Black people are gravitating to this genre, and what stories are you telling in this genre, and how are you, you know, what do you want us to know? But we'll get into that. So first, Corey, I'm going to start with you. If you can sort of like set us up, tell us about checkout time, tell us sort of like the inspiration for it, and then from there we'll move on to Tonya.
Yeah. So Checkout Time is a story of essentially two friends on a road trip to a wedding. They stop at this random hotel to get some rest, and they encounter this otherworldly hotel owner, and you know, horror ensues from there. The story was actually written by my co-producer Taylor Love, who is a complete horror fanatic. Like, that's all she consumes, and we just wanted to figure out a way to, you know, tell a horror story kind of wrapped in love, and we wanted to make sure we touched on, you know, all the major aspects of love while still giving you that dark side of it. And I think we did a pretty good job of it.
Yeah, I'm sorry, you're leaving out a little piece of your story and why the horror was so horror. These were friends who were in relationships with other people.
Yeah, I don't want to give it away.
Oh, okay. You won't give it away, but because we're going to need to go back to that about sort of the theme behind, like, and the idea behind the horror around why, you know, what this was trying to say. Right, here's two people, they're in relationships, they end up being in a relationship at this particular moment in this particular time that it brings them together.
Yeah.
And then something happens with the Airbnb owner, who is perfectly cast as this crazy woman.
Yes, Jasmine Shanice, yes.
It makes me not want to go in an Airbnb ever. So just so you know, it was scary. So we'll get back to that theme around that. All right, so Tonya, Red Pill. Oh.
I think I saw your film, Corey, at Pan African. Is that possible? Or it's, I feel like I saw this film, but okay, maybe I did. Anyway,
where else? No, you were somewhere else. Where else were you? Or are you here first?
Go ahead. I'm sorry.
It's okay. Red Pill. Well, I have all these wonderful people who came together with me to tell a story about what we're living right now in America in terms of minority rule, and the fact that if we don't get this country back by 2022, it may be over forever. Mm-hmm. That's what Red Pill's about. And particularly about a Black woman's perspective of sensing that and being ignored and gaslit, and then her not following her own instincts, and then it's too late for all of us.
You know, I love that part of it, that, you know, here's this, and it sort of harkens back to, you know, the spirituality of Black people. And you're right. And sort of like feeling the sense of anonymity of Black women. So I loved how you brought that into it, but I did love the fact that you were the character who was like, this isn't right. Like you were the one who was constantly sensing something, and everyone else saying, well, what do you mean? You know, but then we find out why all of that happened. Very political, lots of politics in there. So we want to talk about that, lots of layers in there. So we will talk about that and talk about the way that you all are using horror to tell us these stories. So let's get to DeShawn and Anthony about Good People, which we all, and someone said, is this really truly our fear? So why don't you talk about your film?
It's so funny because you're probably only going to hear from me this whole time. He's not very talkative.
I don't know. I think we're going to get him to talk.
I hope so. So Good People actually was written by Anthony. It was directed by myself. And the idea came from, we were going for a bike ride in his hometown in Boston, and we did find a phone. And after that happened, we kind of just started talking about like really crazy scenarios. And he was just kind of like, you know what? I'm gonna write this, and he wrote it. So Good People is about a couple who moves into a new neighborhood, and after they find a cell phone, they try to be good people by attempting to return it to its owner. And from that moment forward, chaos ensues, and the good people who live in the neighborhood try to maintain the goodness of the neighborhood by killing.
Like taking you all out.
Yeah.
I mean, really, it's so funny. You all are like, yeah, and then there's this like, we go into this neighborhood, and then everyone tries to be good. I'm sorry, those people were not good.
Yeah,
those people were out to get y'all. And when you talk about moving into a suburb, you were moving into a white suburb, and then it's sort of like, here's this playing on these fears. So thank you for setting up your films. And the other film that's part of this block is Stray, which was written and produced and directed by Wanjiru, who can be with us. She's in Kenya. But she's on a couple of other Q&As. So you can, if you want to go to our YouTube site, you can hear her conversations about those films. Let's talk about Black trauma and the way that you all are centering your films around that. And I would love to hear from the cast also of Red Pill and their ideas, perceptions, and when you were shooting this film, if that, here's Tonya directing this film, a lot of what you all are doing in your films is playing on that, playing on Black fear, playing on Black trauma, and in the backdrop of all sorts of issues and things that go on in Black lives. So can you talk about if that was a choice to bring that to the forefront for conversation? Because so much of what we do here at RoxFilm is show films as a catalyst for conversation. And I think that there's a lot of conversation around Black horror and why you all are creating this drama.
Well, I want to hear from Katie, because when Katie called me after she got the script, I have to say that she said, "Thank you for inviting me to play this horrible character." Now, I will tell you, Katie, that most white people always ask me, who's the red pill at the end of the film. Only white people, though.
Really? That's
really
hilarious.
So I don't know what made you want us to do it. So
Tonya, I had never read anything like your script before. Sorry, my animals are acting up. I guess I was so relieved and excited that you were telling the story the way you were telling it. And because I think we talked about this over and over again, that life was feeling like a fucking horror film, excuse my French. And to have you dramatize it in that way, I was so grateful for, and that you asked me to be a part of it was a huge gift. And also to play someone like that, I don't know, I just was very excited about getting in that, doing that with you. I can't form sentences.
But it's true about being in that space. I find that really interesting. It's like really seriously about getting in that space and being able to have these conversations, because Black horror from, you know, I mean, it's gotten its heyday since, I mean, it's been around, as we know, forever and ever. Jordan Peele does Get Out, and all of a sudden it's like black horror just started. But it's always been used to help tell stories of trauma in America and Black trauma in America. So Katie, for you, yeah, I mean, that's an interesting perspective that you just wanted to be a part of something that we see this country falling apart. And then how do we want to express that? Do we want to express it through a love story? Do we want to express it through a documentary? Do we want to express it through horror? And we see these themes in all of your films. I see these themes with Checkout Time. I see it with Good People. I see it. You're taught, you know, and although you're talking about, yeah, we had this idea and we had this cell phone, that was about Black people moving into suburban neighborhoods and not feeling comfortable and not feeling safe in a space. That's how I saw it. Okay, so go ahead.
Well, yeah, I was going to speak to that because there's this idea of like Black people, when they get good jobs, there's this like idea of like upward mobility. You know, we want to move into suburban neighborhoods. We don't want to be around those Black people. And I even experienced it in my life as far as like my upbringing. My parents wanting us to live in a better neighborhood. My parents wanting to go to a mall that didn't have too many Black people in it. So there's this idea of like the upward mobility, and our male character is excited about moving his girlfriend into a new neighborhood, and, you know, wants her to think about, you know, certain things about how great it is. But she's like, there's nothing here culturally for me. There's no Sally's Beauty Supply store. There's no Popeyes. There's nothing here culturally for me where I can feel comfortable and accepted. So it kind of shows both of their ideas of like the Black male wanting to be the provider, but then the woman wanting some culture in her area. So there's that. But then there's also this idea that like Black people can just be minding their business and still be bothered, which is like a theme that we see reoccurring in our everyday life, like with, you know, Breonna Taylor and the countless amounts of Black people who are being harassed, and in some cases killed for literally just minding their business. And so there's definitely that theme and this idea of like wanting to do better for ourselves, wanting this upward mobility or the American dream, and just white people in this case not leaving us alone.
Right. Yeah, exactly. And expressing that through trauma and through horror. And for Checkout Time, it's more, you know, we have this whole Black on Black kind of moral, in a way, it feels like this, like, I don't even know if I should say, it feels like almost this like sort of like above Christian kind of, you know, like moralistic battle between Black people, right? So you have the woman who has been wronged, I'm assuming, by her husband and cheated on, and then all of a sudden, you know, these people, well, I'm sorry, yeah, all right, they died, but if you haven't seen it, I'm sorry. So anyway, but I mean,
But they escaped.
Boy,
I did see it.
oh wait. No, well, there's a cliffhanger.
Yeah, there is.
Can you
There's
talk?
a thing.
Yeah, there is. So Corey, talk about that, because there's that. You know, you guys are all like, yeah, I did a horror film, but you didn't. None of you just made a horror film. You had something to say.
Yeah. For Checkout Time, you know, our director Calvin Walker really was intentional with trying to capture, I guess, the pain of love per se, and how traumatic that could be in all facets, and how that, you know, that trauma can linger, and you can hurt people essentially. Yeah, I mean, I really didn't look at Checkout Time as you know, from this aspect. So this question kind of catches me off guard, you know what I mean? Because I didn't really look at it like that. I looked at it as, you know, just a great story and a great opportunity to make something in the genre that I love. You know what I mean?
Yeah. And
isn't that funny? Very smart and profound.
No, but it's funny because that's the thing. Like, you can see all sorts of different things in it, and you can interpret it different ways.
Yeah.
Right. I mean, you made it simple, but there are statements in there that people are going to look at and think, huh, like, yeah, like they cheated. She was obviously scorned. Like, you can't do that. Like, she was really hurt, and then she's going to come back, and it's going to come back to bite you in the ass. And in this
I thought
case,
she
right?
made them do that. I thought she like put some spell on them to make them behave badly.
No, they
See?
actually so they were actually, you know, old friends who, you know,
I knew they were friends, but
always wanted each other, and just, you know, never opportunity never presented itself. And then when it happened, it just happened at the wrong time, in this
Yes.
creepy hotel, and this lady was not having it.
Yeah. And I mean, there's a lot to be said in that. And so Tonya, in Red Pill, there's so much in this movie. There's so many pieces in it, between race, between gender, between politics. I mean, and it's interesting the way you lay it out. You know, here's this fun ride in a car that we're traveling to. We don't really know. You know, and then you end up at this Airbnb. Okay, well, all right, and then you're like, right. So are they getting? Oh, okay. Should I not give it away? Is
you
stuff
can give it
happening
away.
to-
Everybody here kind of knows the movie.
Yeah. So is stuff happening to them because of their politics, or is stuff happening to them because of their race? Is stuff happening to them because they're liberal? You know what I mean? Like, there are so many things that I saw in this film. So can you just talk a little bit about, like, and the cast can even jump in too, about how you felt about all of this stuff that was going on?
I mean, you're like, you could write a thesis on all the things that are in it. What I really wanted to say in the film is neither side is that great. And here are the liberals. They're a lot of talking. They do a lot of talking, but their actions aren't much. And the other side, they just all action. No talk, all action, clear agenda. And that was really, you know, when I was thinking about how to put it together, it was like one side is all action, the other side is all talk.
Does anyone from the cast want to chime in on that? You've heard from Katie and others when you read the script and said, huh.
A song for it. She wrote a song for the movie. She was one of the Red Pill women, and she wrote a song for it.
And the ending, I mean, they're all like, how are we supposed to take that as Black people, that we can't trust? It's like in Good People, you can't trust anybody. Well, you can't trust white people. Sorry.
I think that's one of the great things about Red Pill, is that it starts out in one place as 6 political activists who are friends and who know each other and rely on each other and love each other and trust each other, going to a place that they haven't been to make change, to, with hope in their hearts. And it goes there, and then the next level sets in, right? And then it clearly becomes about race, and then it clearly becomes about gender, and then it clearly becomes about other things, the history that has been for a lot of white people ignored, or not wanted to be discussed, or not wanting to be brought back to the forefront. And then it's a whole town that looks one way but is actually not that way. So it's not just a woman or a man, it's an entire community of people. So the concept of, in one scene where you see this, horrific sign that's broken down to what they don't want in their community, before Trump became president, a lot of people, were living in communities where, they don't see Black people at their school. They don't see them in their neighborhood. They don't see them maybe at the bank or at the grocery store. I mean, so that was just their world. And so they were nice to everybody, and nobody bothered anybody, and just moved in your own way. And all of a sudden, with Trump, you have people out on the street. You have people verbalizing and vocalizing how they want to be allies now to Black people, to people of different sexual orientations, to women, to everybody who is not perhaps being spoken for like they should be. Suddenly, that was the worst thing about Trump, but yet on the same hand, during that time frame, it motivated and inspired people, I think, who were a little more laid back, not wanting to be as involved in the past, realizing they had to become involved. It's now my time to not just say I'm an ally, but to put forth into action that I am an ally here. And this is my opportunity. I can join a march. I can be out here in the street. I can say I'm not going to support this business or that particular, or I'm not going to be okay listening to what you have to say. If I don't agree with it, I'm going to have a response for you.
Right, but in Red Pill, they're not, they don't, in the end, they're not allies. They become part of.
In the end.
Yeah,
but,
the really
what I like
bad
to see was the
people.
deconstruction of that along the way. So,
Right.
because the same, what I just kind of said, it was kind of like everybody had this big picture. And then all of a sudden through the years of Trump, we started to see that was not just like a simple big picture. There was a lot of deconstruction that was involved during those 4 years.
Right.
Right. And that's kind of how I related for me in the movie. Because,
Yeah.
you know, when you're watching the movie was the film that Tonya wrote was written before Trump, right? And you're talking about people going crazy over toilet paper. And I was like reading this script going, wait, what? That's what's happening now. People are, I can't get toilet paper for 6 weeks. What's happening? Right?
Right. No,
So,
exactly. And that's what I'm saying is like, so it's you start out as these great friends, and this happened in Good People as well, that you're moving into a neighborhood and everyone's being nice and they're bringing over cake and they're really, but that's not really who they are. Right. So it's this sort of like, are we, you know, as far as Black horror goes, are we trying, is this helping us process this trauma? Are you guys are you using a genre to help us process, or is it re-traumatizing us? You know what I mean? Like,
I want to respond to that because I've been thinking about what the next thing I want to make is.
yeah.
And I have to say that I'm drawn to the shadow of everything, because I just think that there's just, for actors, it's just the most interesting place to play.
Mm-hmm.
But I feel like I want to do a sex trafficking story that has a happy ending, but I don't want to denigrate people who aren't going to get a happy ending.
Right.
And so it's like, where is that line? Where is that line? You know, when you're telling story, like you want to be aspirational, but you don't want to seem like you're tone deaf to the suffering and pain that is actually going on.
Right. Right. Yeah. I mean, that brings up a point and that's exactly it. We don't want to re-traumatize ourselves. I mean, you guys are creating work that tells these really specific, important stories that we've all been through or that we fear will happen. And so are we creating this horror genre and these stories to serve Black people, or are we doing them to serve someone else?
why can't it serve everyone? I think
and that's just a question.
I think that's what these movies are potentially showing, that it doesn't, starting from the darker place of a horror genre is clearly changing, right? And not just with these films, but also, like you mentioned, Get Out. So you can start in a place where people are mentally or psychologically preparing themselves a little bit for some darker material, or a little jump here or a scare here. And because of that, actually, I think subconsciously they're a little more focused on where it's going to be, when it's going to happen, what are they gonna say before, you know, and what you can then put inside are these other elements of socioeconomic, societal, political, systemic racism, and you put them in there, and people are actually paying more attention in there because they're trying to subconsciously connect where this is going to kill somebody off or expose who the villain is. For me, that's what I was thinking.
And I mean, I think that's true. And Corey, I'm curious because you said that you love this genre, you love this, and also for Tonya. And I don't know about DeShawn and Anthony about like if this is something that you want to even more, if you want to pursue more and do horror. But Corey, you specifically said like you love this genre. Why is that? What is this? What does it do for you? Why is it? Why are you so drawn to it?
Well, it's with horror, and I just want to go back and touch on. You know, you were asking about how we, you know, why we make it, and what are we doing? Are we re-traumatizing ourselves? I think with horror, especially with, you know, creators like Jordan Peele and Justin Simien, who create these great films, and it's almost like the peel and the peanut butter. You know what I mean? It kind of it kind of forces you. It scares you, but it forces you to look at things in a different perspective, in a different light. And so they're educational and they're entertaining at the same time for me. And that's what really draws me to it, because now, you know, I can tell the story of, you know, the Black plight wrapped in horror to get everybody to the theaters. And now they can break down those layers and they can see, you know, this is what we go through on the daily basis or whatever the case may be. You know what I mean? So
no, yeah. I know exactly what you mean.
Yeah.
And that's what I was talking about is like, are you guys creating these stories because these really are our true fears? And this is a great way to use this genre to address those. Tonya?
For me, like, what I like about horror is it has a formula. You meet some people, you know who's gonna die, you know who the monster, you can figure out the monster bait by people's behavior. And so there's a comfort to the regularity of the formula for me. And I prefer to see it in a horror film than to see a drama where it's very real. Like someone sent me the trailer for this new Karen movie, and I was like, yeah, that's just too real. You can't put no humor in that, you know. Yeah. And horror, you can laugh because the violence is a little not real violence, you know. It's a little touch away from. I mean, I spent all day. I'm pretty depressed because I spent all day watching like real violence in the world, and it was just like, yeah. I don't know how to do this.
Yeah, I mean, we need that. I think you're absolutely true. I think it's true. I mean, we want to talk about how painful it is and the trauma of being Black in America, especially this past year. Not that it hasn't been happening for 400 years, but I mean, we're just constantly reminded of that trauma. So why not use, because it's true, you know, as Black people, like I said, I'm like, Tonya, why are you in the cornfield? Why are you walking down this street? I don't understand it.
But that's the genre.
I know, but that's what I'm saying.
The genre says, don't go. That's part of the genre.
We need to do that. And we need to do that. We need to say, you know, you're not supposed to go down there. It's like in Good People. It's like, do not leave her alone. You need to go back, you know, don't go out in the back. Don't open those shutters, you know. And for checkout time, you're like, I'm not sure you want to be walking in those woods. You know, Black people do not walk in those woods. So it's true. It gives you, you know, it's like I'm facing that fear, but I'm facing it in the comfort of a movie theater or in my own home, but realizing my own fear. Right. And then being able to resolve it through your films.
There's a YouTube show called Horror Movies That Wouldn't Have Happened If They Cast Black Actors. And it is hysterical because it's like the boys go, they're like roommates, and they go in the kitchen and like one of them is growling, blah, 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 and he goes and he knocks on their business. He's like, we got to go. So-and-so is possessed. And they just leave.
It's like Scary Movie, which is like so true. We do need to laugh at it. So you all, go ahead, Sean.
Well, I was gonna say that as far as like filmmaking is concerned and like the horror genre and are we re-traumatizing ourselves, I think that subtlety is like really important when we kind of approach the work in this way, because a lot of times I do feel like as an audience member, I'm like being hit over the head over and over and over again with certain themes and being made to think something versus being hinted at and me kind of like drawing my own conclusion. And I think that's where the best filmmaking kind of comes in, like that subtlety where people kind of pull from it what they will, versus the type of writing or filmmaking where it's like, this is what I want you to get from it, and you need to get this right now. Right. And so I really enjoy that. But also, I understand the critique about re-traumatizing ourselves, but I think that this is my personal opinion, the only reason why it's re-traumatizing is because America as like a culture hasn't actually accepted fully the traumas of the Black experience, whether that's past, future, and present, traumas. Right. I feel like when it comes to other atrocities that have happened, people are more apt to accept that as truth. But when it comes to the Black experience, collectively, people don't believe in our experiences, and there are still history books that are telling stories about how slaves were being treated so well and they were so loved. And so America has a very big truth issue. And I think that's why it feels like it's re-traumatizing, because collectively we haven't accepted the truth of the situation.
I want to jump on what DeShawn said. Like, I have my friend Michelle, we were talking, she has read all the slave narratives from the WPA. And I read them and I was like, that shit ain't real. And she was, we were going, she was like, yes, but they went and they interviewed them. I'm like, Black people wasn't going to tell the truth to no white people after they got out of slavery. You can't trust that. And then just this week, I found out that this Black woman whose grandparents were enslaved, she did her own series of 150 narratives talking to Black people who talked. Her name is, I think it's Azalea Banks or Egypt. And she did narratives, and they're more honest about what that experience was. But I also want to say to you, DeShawn, that I feel like I'm old. And for me growing up, if violence was happening, it was like right here in the world. And I had to either get my ass beat or I had to stand up for it. So there was a sense of agency in it. Right now, this is where our violence is. It's on these devices and we're powerless. And so I think that there's the trauma of the powerlessness of this violence constantly coming at you that you can't do anything about.
Right, except for write about it, right? And bring it forward. So I'm wondering, you all seem to be in this genre. Do you and it seems, we're seeing so much more in Black horror, and I think it's great. I mean, there are some people who just are queasy and scared and won't, I mean, I'm one of those people, but I did watch all of the movies and I was scared. But that's okay, because I took something away from all of them. Do you see Black filmmakers now sort of shaping this genre in a way? And you all are part of that. And the cast is part of that, because we're not just casting necessarily Black people in this, but we're bringing in, all types of people with a Black centered storyline.
I would say we have more access to it.
Mm-hmm.
We have more access to it now that, they see it makes money. They see it's a genre that we want. And now we have, the ability to tell our horror stories. Like we never had this opportunity before. And so, yeah, we definitely will. I see us reshaping it, taking over it like we do everything else in the culture, making it our own, and growing from it.
I agree. I agree with that. I think that we're definitely reshaping it, because I'm also like a horror person. It's really interesting. Like I grew up in a very conservative Christian home, and I actually used to have to sneak to watch horror films. And I was also very much scared of horror films at the same time. Scary. I've had like nightmares, but I'll still be like, I'm watching this film. And so I think we're changing, we're reshaping it from the perspective of like a lot of the horror films that I grew up watching, all of the women were sexualized in these really weird way. Horror film is a very like sexualized genre.
I grew up with all the Jamie Lee Curtis films. I grew up with Halloween and all that was horror.
And I feel like
we're shaping it in such a much more political way.
It's political. I think it's smart, and I think it makes sense. You know, in some cases, you know, depending on whatever your directing style is. So I definitely think that we're shaping it and just making it, you know, cool for us.
Yeah, Tonya, what do you think? Because you're in the thick of it.
I'm excited by things like Exterminate All the Brutes, which is Doc, and
beautiful series.
I was excited by Them, which got a lot of hate from young Black people online.
Yeah,
but
we talked about that.
That thrilled me. But I think, you know, one of the things I said this the other day, Babu talked about the book The Undeclared War by David Putnam, which is about the making of Hollywood and how Hollywood is the propaganda arm of America. And Hollywood is about selling American values abroad, and America requires nations that get money from them to give us like 85% of their film market to sell our values, and American values are still anti-Black. And so, you know, one or two might slip through, but I don't see the vision hasn't changed. We know the vision hasn't changed because of these voting laws.
Right.
Because we can't even they filibustered equal pay for women. They filibustered voting. So the agenda of America has not changed.
Right. Exactly. So yeah, I can only say that I hope you continue. I can only, you know, I mean, Tonya, your cast is here. They were wonderful. You know, scary and a little shady. You guys were a little shady.
Did you know who the Red Pill was, Lisa?
I didn't know who the Red Pill. Wait.
Oh, okay. Did you know? Did you figure out who the Red Pill was?
People.
It was Jake.
See, Tonya, I get it still. Like most of the people that watch the movie are like, oh, it's
because you were so shady. You kept like you kept like looking over this way and that way, and I was like, he cannot be trusted.
Yeah, it's the white guy.
This one right here, I was like, he cannot be trusted.
You see, it's called great acting.
But then Kathryn, I don't know. But then I mean, you know, I need to watch it again. I'm just gonna watch the end again over and over
because
again.
It's done so well for me, even when I watch it.
But then you died.
Where are they putting it in here? Who it is? And I know who it is because I read the script, but I was not there during the.
We can't say it because we don't want to. I
wasn't there during the filming.
It's the ones that are being very quiet. The other Tonya, the other doppelgangers whose names are also Tonya, who are being very, very quiet about who the Red Pill is.
Millicent, it's so dark right now back there. I can't even see your eyeballs.
Millicent was the Red Pill. Millicent was the Red Pill.
You know, I just, you know, we will continue to support this genre at RoxFilm. We will continue to find your stories. We will continue to support them. I just think that it's a really, really, really interesting time. And I think you're right, Corey, all of you, about sort of like burying that pill in peanut butter. And it's going to affect you. It's going to go down a little easier, but there are so many ways to break it apart and to bury stories in it and to have people go, huh? You know, and for me, coming to a different conclusion at checkout time than you did, and weren't even thinking, like, I didn't make it for that, but it came through. So there's something in the way that you wrote it and that came across, that's what came across to me. Like, this woman was you know, destroyed, and she was never going to let that happen again. And she was actually willing to kill people for it. And for good people, we've all been there. And certainly, you know, I mean, the whole red pill thing, just driving to the countryside as Black people is traumatizing. And not knowing where you're going and just seeing things that you know just aren't right. So I do think it's fodder for lots of great conversation. I think you guys all did an amazing job of scaring us and putting creepy people in our minds. But
they all around you. Creepy people are all around you. You just have to
and that's
open your
it.
eyes.
Okay, can I just say that that's your film? Like, I love you guys, all of you guys, but I was like, who's the creepy? Who's the one? Like, who? Like, you know what I mean? And that's it. And that said, That says a lot. That you're right. That there are, and that's our fear as Black people. Who do we trust? And in Corey's film, we can't even trust each other.
Facts.
Can I just say something?
Yeah.
This is totally off topic, but Katie loved you in D2 The Mighty Ducks. Favorite
Oh,
movie of all time. And we have a big Stir of Echoes fan here.
Oh, that's awesome. That makes me so happy. Ducks fly together.
oh my gosh! But yeah, the new series, the new Mighty Ducks series.
My God, you guys should have seen me like walking my dog, smoking cigarettes, complaining because I was just waiting for the kids to finish playing hockey so I could work. And no, those kids were great. Those kids were great.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
And Stir of Echoes, I had a blast doing. Yeah. And, oh, and what about Bob? Thank you. Yeah.
That's awesome.
And Katie's won like two acting awards for Red Pill already.
Awesome.
Awesome.
Yes.
Yeah, no, I mean, really believable. So Katie's the red pill. Look, she's like, oh, I don't know. So, you can't do that, Jake, because you're pointing somewhere where Hollywood squares aren't set.
I know,
All
but
right,
I
you
just
guys,
thought it'd be
this is-
funnier because that woman's been sitting on the chair there real quiet the whole time. So I figured it was
I know. Eek.
I don't even know who
That
she
woman?
is.
That woman?
No, I don't think he's talking about Michelle, who's in a different place over there. Michelle hasn't said a word, Kat.
Julia's saying, I think it's Tonya. Right. She's the red pill. You know, you guys, we could talk on and on. This has been wonderful. I so appreciate all of you. Thank you for coming on and having this conversation. We've been having some really great conversations with Tonya too in the Filmmaker Hangout. So I'm going to head over to the Filmmaker Hangout now just because it's a great place to have conversations with people. But I appreciate all of your work, everything that you're doing. We will continue to follow you, support you, whatever we can do at RoxFilm to help move your dreams forward and support them and connect you with people. But
I just wanted to say, as a first-time filmmaker, to be selected to the Rocks was amazing, and me and my team, like, we were overjoyed. Like, this one was one we really, really wanted to get in just because of the history. And our director, he was like, "Bro, you got to make sure you get us in this one." And so to be selected, we are overjoyed, man. Thank you so much for having us, man.
oh my God, that is so incredibly sweet of you. We completely appreciate that. So when you make so next year we'll all be in person and then we can all go out for drinks.
I gotta make sure I make a good movie now.
Yeah, yeah.
you.
I'm sure you will. You got it.
Thank you,
Thank you all so
Great.
much. So appreciate you.
Thanks, guys.
Yeah.
Thank you. Keep it up. Thank you.
Thank you. Bye-bye.